Man, this is fun. This is like a perfect example of one of those things where being a transdualist gives you more fun in certain things. You know, partly probably because I'm autistic too, but being an autistic transdualist, I get a interesting sense of fun on some of these things because I wouldn't consider myself a Dragon Ball Z fan, but I am getting thoroughly invested into it, which most people would see as a fan kind of, or fandom kind of reaction. But it's because I go so much deeper, and this is where I get deep, and this is where it gets fun and interesting. So, the Dragon Ball Mandala Effect, how a Shonen anime became accidental scripture. Pop quiz. In what timeline does Bardock become a Super Saiyan? When exactly did Goku fight Broly? Is Dragon Ball GT canon? Wait, were there people living on the moon? If you can't answer these questions confidently, congratulations. You're experiencing what I call the Dragon Ball Mandala Effect. And no, that's not a typo. Most franchises have a Mandela effect problem. You know, when lots of people misremember the same detail, Berenstain Bears versus Berenstein Bears, Darth Vader never saying, Luke, I am your father. But Dragon Ball has a Mandala effect. Because with Dragon Ball, the problem isn't that we're misremembering a single canon. The problem is that there is no single canon to remember. Nearly every Dragon Ball movie is either a retcon, an alternative timeline, a retelling of something that has already happened, or simply cannot fit into the main continuity no matter how hard you try. And that's just the official stuff. Then you got Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which has become so influential that for an entire generation of fan, this is the version that they remember. Not the official dub, the parody. So here's the thesis. Dragon Ball isn't just producing false memory, it's functioning as a mandala, a recursive circular mythology that you approach from multiple angles, where a contradiction isn't a bug, it's the entire point. And when you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's talk about what makes Dragon Ball structurally allergic to a single canon. Most franchises protect their canon. Star Wars has the Lucasfilm story group. Marvel has Kevin Feige's obsessively managing the timeline. Even messy franchises like X-Men eventually try to clean things up. Dragon Ball ritually violates its own continuity. Movies that contradict the timeline, TV specials that feel canon until they quietly aren't, GT as a what if sequel, Super overriding GT without fully erasing it, Super's manga and anime versions diverging while airing simultaneously, Toriyama himself forgetting major plot points. This is what I call the canonical fog, where no single version can dominate long enough to stabilize collective memory. So instead of this happened, you get I remember this happening, I think. But here's where it gets interesting. In most media, retcons are damage control. They're trying to fix something. In Dragon Ball, retcons are creative rhythm. Take Bardock. He goes from ruthless low-class Saiyan warrior to tragic rebel with psychic visions to gentle father who looks exactly like Goku to time-traveling Super Saiyan to whatever he is in the new movies. The series doesn't correct itself. It remandalizes itself. Each retelling is a new symbolic truth, not a factual override. And then Dragon Ball Super does something genius. It ontologizes the contradiction. Uh, by making alternate timelines explicitly real, by having multiple universes where different versions of events occur, Dragon Ball's metaphysics quietly say when someone tells you that's not how it happened, the correct response is in your timeline. Timeline line bleed through isn't a bug; it's baked into the cosmology. The Gnostic turn. Okay, let's talk about the Dragon Ball Z abridged because here is where things get really weird. Most people treat Dragon Ball Z abridged as a parody, a joke version, and something less than the real show. But what if I told you that Dragon Ball Z abridged functions less like parody and more like apocryphal scripture? Stay with me here. Now, in early Christianity, there wasn't one authorized Bible. There were dozens of competing texts. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Judas, These Gnostic gospels were hidden, passed around in secret because they told versions of the story that the authorities found dangerous, not because they were false, but because they revealed uncomfortable truths that the official version wanted to bury. Dragon Ball Z Abridged does exactly this. It doesn't deny the events of Dragon Ball Z, it re-encodes their meaning. The humor is the encryption layer, the laughter is the initiation rite. Official Dragon Ball Z says, here is what happened. Dragon Ball Z Abridged says, here is what this felt like, and what it was actually going to do to people. Take this scene. Vegeta coming out of his regeneration chamber, and a minion mentions his lost tail. He mentions something along the lines of, would you call living without a tail living? On the surface, it's a throwaway gag, but let's look at what the official series does with the tail removal. In canon, losing the tail is framed as maturation, as evolution. The characters grow beyond their beast forms, but symbolically, the tail represents instinct, lunar connection, primal power, wildness that cannot be controlled. Removing its domestication, its castration, literally severing the phallic connection to instinctual, erotic, and uncontrollable power, and the series just moves on, treats it as necessary, never questions the loss. Dragon Ball Z Abridged refused to let this wound disappear. That one joke, would you call living without a tail living, is a Gnostic lament. It's asking, does survival under mutilation count as life? This reframes Vegeta's entire narrative arc. In Dragon Ball Z Abridged, he's not just an anti-hero. He's the Gnostic exile, the one who knows the system is broken, participates with it anyway, and is continuously mutilated by it while being told its growth. The screaming isn't just funny, it's accurate. Vegeta is right to be furious, and that's what's worse. He's trapped in a universe that demands sacrifice for power, that calls loss evolution, that erases wounds the moments they're inconvenient to the plot. The joke is the only way to make this visible without breaking the show. The Moon and the Forgotten. This one was my little added bit, because I was realizing a little, lost away little bit that was lost from the canon, that was never talked about again. And I was realizing, this would have made a perfect joke in the Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Now, granted, I haven't finished or seen every aspect of it, so maybe someone's already done this joke, but this was my little one. So, here's a little thought experiment. Early in Dragon Ball, there's a villain called Monster Carrot, a rabbit boss who turns people into carrots by touching them. Goku defeats him by having Poir transform into a bird and carry him into the moon. Oh my god, this is where the mandala shit is getting to the fucking AI, my god. I don't remember it being Poir. I remember Goku using his power pole and taking them all up to the moon. But maybe there is another version where Poir turns into a bird and carries them to the moon. I don't know. The AI says it's real. It's real. So Goku, in my memory, Goku takes him to the power pole, takes him to the moon, and he's left with his henchmen pounding mochi for eternity. You'll get a year to pound mochi for all the world's children. I let you down. Cute ending, right? But then in Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo destroys the moon to stop Gohan from transforming into an ape. And the series never mentions the Rabbit Gang again. And they were just erased. Collateral damage in a divine act that the narrative treats as heroic necessity. This is what Dragon Ball does consistently. Scales up the stakes so high that entire populations become background noise. Frieza destroys planets, Boo turns people into candy. The multiverse tournament threatens to erase entire universes. The spectacle numbs us to the horror. But the moon specifically carries weight. Yeah. Again, the cycles, okay, blah, blah, blah. But when Piccolo destroys the moon to stop Gohan's transformation, he's literally destroying the thing that triggers uncontrollable change. It's a perfect metaphor for how Dragon Ball treats anything that can't be disciplined into the power scaling hierarchy. And this is why the Dragon Ball Z Abridged reference to the Rabbit Gang would be perfect. Mock dialogue. Vegeta, wait, weren't there those rabbit idiots up there? Piccolo, huh? Vegeta, natural selection. Or Goku, aw man, I hope they had parachutes. That would have been perfect with Goku and the Dragon Ball Z abridged voice actor. Like, his voice acting would have been perfect for, aw man, I hope they had parachutes. It would be hilarious, and but underneath the humor, it's doing exactly what folk-Gnostic texts always do, refusing to let the margins stay erased. The archons, the power that be, they want the grand narrative. They want the epic battles and transformation. Gnosis remembers the footnotes, the weird, the small things that got sacrificed for spectacle. Dragon Ball Z abridged at its best makes the silences speak. The pluralist revelation. Here's why this matters. Return to the mandala imagery. So here's where we land. There's this impulse, especially in fandom, to what I call a dualistic pluralist. The plurist says only Dragon Ball, and by extension Dragon Ball Z, are real. Everything else, everything newer, they're all fake, lesser, and not canon. But Dragon Ball itself has already rejected this worldview. By establishing multiverses, by retconning consistently, by allowing manga and anime to diverge, by Toriyama himself treating continuity as a loose suggestion, the series has built a cosmology where multiple incompatible truths coexist. So the only philosophical coherent response is what I call transdual pluralism. Dragon Ball Z abridged isn't replacing the official version. It's not diminishing it. It's simply adding another position on the mandala. Official canon equals institutional narrative. Abridged canon equals communal mythopoesis. Movies equal symbolic variations. Games equal interactive retellings. They're all real. They're just an answer to different gods. And this isn't new. This is how mythology has always worked. The Iliad had multiple versions. Norse myths contradicted themselves consistently. The Bible had 4 different gospels that don't agree on basic facts. Nobody worried about this until relatively recently, when mass media created the illusion that stories should have one authoritative form. But Dragon Ball, through commercial opportunism, creator indifference, and franchise longevity, accidentally rediscovered the old way. Stories aren't static monuments. They're living processes. They evolve through retelling. They gain meaning through interpretation. They belong to the community that engages with them. So that's why I call this the Mandala Effect rather than the Mandela Effect. Because you don't consume a mandala once and move on. You circle it. You approach it from different angles. Each return reveals something new, depending on where you are in your own journey. The contradictions aren't problems to solve. They're invitations to engage. The false memories aren't failures. They're proof you're participating in a living myth. Conclusion. The beauty of chaos. Dragon Ball accidentally becomes postmodern before postmodern was cool, multiversal before Marvel monetized upon it, meme native before memes have language, a sacred text that expects misquotation. Everyone is right, everyone is wrong, Shenron shrugs. I love Shenron. Gotta love Shenron. And somehow Goku still wins in every version. So true. The dualistic pluralist wants one truth. The transdualistic pluralist sees the mandala. Dragon Ball Z abridged isn't just parody. It's folk gospel. The movies aren't cash grabs. They're mythic variations. Your wrong memory isn't wrong. It's your position in the circle. Dragon Ball taught us how to hold contradictions, how to laugh at gods, how to find meaning in chaos. That is not a bug. That's enlightenment. See, that's what I'm saying. I laugh at Beerus, man. Beerus is a funny dude, my goodness. Yeah, sure, he ain't really deep and theological and spiritual. He ain't no, freaking, he ain't no Shiva, or any of that good, creation and destruction, circular, the real stuff. But it's still good. It still adds to the enjoyment, adds to the nuance and complexity and the depth of it, and it's good, fun stuff. Come on, Beerus being in the appearance of one of those, ancient Egyptian cats, those sphinx, like, skin, those hairless cats, like, that vibes, that works, So I don't know. This whole thing is such an interesting, trippy, fascinating thing that I've gone on to, and it's just gotten even more fascinating because today I came across the first like fully AI movie thing I've seen on YouTube, where I actually clicked it and started watching it, and I wasn't disappointed. Because for years I've been theorizing that the future of entertainment, is going to make, the Marvel, universe thing look just pitiful. I'm like, okay, everything's gonna relate to everything. Big Bang Theory's gonna relate to freaking, Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z's gonna relate to, this is like, they're just all gonna relate to each other. It's just gonna be this multiverse of chaos, but somehow it's gonna work. But that's where I'm getting more into the autistic and schizo and the personality types and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, maybe it's just the global community hasn't gotten schizo enough to appreciate that kind of media format. But here, that's where I'm watching this today. I'm watching this freaking Dragon Ball Z versus Rick Sanchez. And my God, it's actually working, and it's hilarious and interesting. My God, you're having Rick Sanchez fight fucking Vegeta, but he's pulling out the fucking, Naruto fucking, eye magic shit out of nowhere, and then he's pulling out the fucking Infinity Glove. I'm like, oh my God, if I didn't reach my crazy ass faith, I would be looking at this like, oh my God, this inhuman, unartistic drivel. But instead I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, it's chaos, yeah, it's ugly, yeah, it's shit, yeah, it's a mess, but it's also fucking beautiful. And that's the thing that people don't realize when it comes to the AI and entertainment, is it's just like entertainment has always worked in history. There's shit entertainment and there's good entertainment. There's sort of things that are objectively shit and objectively good, and then there's the ones that are more subjectively shit or subjectively good. There's always that sort of 4-point fucking black box of how we engage media and our stories and whether we get enjoyment or meaning out of it. And so, I don't know. It's just all interesting, fascinating stuff, and yeah, that's where, if you're deep intellectually, spiritually, and you have time on your hands, maybe now's a good time to get into Dragon Ball Z or in the Dragon Ball freaking franchise, because Toriyama's passed away, and there's the series is sort of in this legal limbo with loosely enforced copyright and IP, which with the free culture movement and people having fun and creating these Dragon Ball Z abridged and it becoming just as impactful, just as meaningful as the real thing. We need to move forward on this, people. We need to, every single day I got my fingers crossed. Hopefully the one good thing AI does is completely destroy the modern version of copyright, the modern enforcement system and how we're using this. Because even when it comes to, engaging with like smart capitalism, of course the dumb capitalists always make the most money, but when you're engaging with smart capitalism and you're doing it the way it's supposed to be, you would realize that, oh my God, we're like the game industry, for instance. We've gotten so fucking greedy that even the gamers hate us and nobody wants to buy our shit anymore, and we're not gonna fucking make video games anymore, even though that's our whole industry, because we don't make enough profit. The risk to benefit ratio doesn't pay off. You need a healthier environment of creativity and capital. The dynamics are entirely fucked up right now in the world, and it is a sad, sad state of affairs where I can't just find some amazing piece of media, that came out the past 5 or 10 years, that I haven't seen. I've seen thousands of things. I've seen everything, So I have to go back to something that my childhood is, I don't want to watch this. It's a good thing spiritually to be, pushing past the ego and be diving into and discovering new things, getting, pushing away all the bullshit, getting the gold out of it. But at the same time, again, we just need a healthier balance in this world. Our ontological balance in this reality is all screwed up right now on anything, whether it's fandom or politics or philosophy or ideology, anything. We need to get this shit in order. But I digress. I went a little, That's what I'm saying, man. Fuel to my fire. Oh, crazy, crazy, interesting, fun shit. But anyway, this has been Sage DeForest over at Saged and Confused, signing out.